I try to make the cords that will last a lifetime, unlike medical prosthetics that are too soft. They're made out of silicone, and as I understand it, they dry out in about 2 years. And even prosthetic companies contact me and say, hey, if you'd sell us a license agreement, we could sell these things for $8,500 each.
So welcome to Conversations on the Compassion Works Way. I'm Jordan Schaefer, and this is a chance for me to talk with people about what they're doing, things they know about that I find interesting and think are important, and I think you will too. Today I'm talking with Randy Young of Galaxy Guitars. So Randy's is an innovator, a businessman, but he's all the kind of businessman that puts his focus of attention on the well-being of his customers. And he makes finger protectors. They make guitars and these finger protectors. So the way I found out about Randy is when I was in high school, I cut the tip of a finger. And I played guitar at the time, and I played afterwards, but it worked fine. But when I got out of the Army and I did go to Nashville, I was playing more seriously several hours a day, practicing really. And that finger started hurting, the one that I injured. And a lot of times if you play on fingers and they hurt, then they toughen up. But this one didn't. And it took me about 2 days of thinking about what happened. I guess I did my own little float back, and I got to the time when I cut it off in a factory. What I did the next day is bought an old guitar and strung it up left-handed and just flipped it over. Well, I did that for a couple of years, but it didn't really it didn't translate. So after that, I just went back to playing right-handed on my guitar and played without using my middle finger. So with just 3 fingers, index, ring, and little finger. And that was okay. It was limiting. I could play a lot of songs, chords, but it was harder. Not really well done, I guess. But what the finger protectors are, they look like little thimbles. If you're hearing this, it's like a thimble that goes over the end of the finger that he makes and puts a leather pad on it, and it works really well. So when I was in Plano, Texas, I guess I went to see a guy play a blues concert, and even though it's not something I ever really listened to a lot, I thought I'd take guitar lessons from the guy, and so I went there to do that. And when we sat down and I showed him how I was playing, he said, well, there's some guy in a group up north, he thought it was Black Sabbath. He said he uses finger protectors, things on the end of his fingers, and so you might look at them. And so from that suggestion, then I went on the internet and I found these finger protectors that are made by Galaxy Guitars. That was in about, I think, 1998 or 99. And so I've been using them since then, one on the end of my finger. Over the years, he's developed them and changed them. So really about a month ago or a little longer, I placed another order on the new kind, and it kind of got mixed up as to what I was ordering. And so Randy called me, and so we were talking then, and he knew I was a long-time customer. An early customer of theirs. So basically, we talked for quite a while and told me his story. And he actually had met Black Sabbath, the guitar player for that, whose name is Tony Iommi. And so these aren't bands or people that I was into, but he was into them. And anyway, from that connection with Tony, then he developed these finger protectors because he wanted to play like Tony, to make that sound, which he felt like he needed the finger protectors to do that. And from that, then people saw him play with them, and then they would ask him for them. And over time, he just developed this business really now where he makes finger protectors for people who cut the ends of their fingers off, guitarists but anybody really. And it's quite a business. And I didn't know. I thought I was like the only one, but it turns out that people do it every day. Cut their fingers off every day. He said he gets emails all the time with people who want a finger protector. And so we talk about that. So we talk about how he started his business, his desire, like he had this intense desire to make these things, figure out how to make them for himself, really. But in his innovation, he innovated on guitars. He built his business out of Las Vegas. And so it's very interesting, really. And we talk about he focuses on how it came together, things that happened in his life that got him in the place to where he met Tony and the synchronicities, I think. And then also the things that didn't work out. Like he auditioned for Kiss, I think, and Ozzy Osbourne. And even though he was a very good guitarist, he didn't get those jobs. And everything leads to him making these finger protectors for people who cut the tips of their fingers off. I think he said a lot of skill saw accidents happen. But so I think for counselors, this is interesting to hear because also you can hear an innovator, somebody gets an idea and he's going with it. And then also you may have clients who could, and you yourself may benefit from knowing about these. So here you go with an interview with Randy Young of Galaxy Guitars. No, I've been paying attention or listening to an interview with Tony. Is it Iommi, right?
Yes.
And then also listen to one his song you recommended or liked. Pretty interesting guy, really. Big name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And for I was never into really rock and roll even. That's really not, that's even beyond rock and roll, right?
Yeah, it's heavy rock.
Heavy metal or heavy rock.
Yeah.
And you can play that. You're
Yeah, I play the hard rock, but I listen to everything. Started out with George Harrison and the Beatles, went to Jimi Hendrix, then Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi, and I listen to smooth jazz too. No vocals, just the modern jazz. There's a lot of good guitar player and bass player grooves that I really enjoy.
Okay.
Players like Norman Brown. I enjoy that type of music as well. So I listen to Duran Duran, anything that's really good, I like. So I'm also interested in the production of, how the songs sound, how the drums are, all the production aspects of recording some into as well.
Do you still play professionally a little bit? Or?
Yeah, I have CDs out. In fact, a management company from England re-released one of the bands I was in, Squadron, spelled RAN. It's called You Were Under Attack. They re-released that about 5 years ago.
Oh.
I have a CD out with Shockwave called Heavy Impact. And all you have to do is go to facebook.com and type in the search bar Young Thunder Rocks. And you will see I made a page and added some samples of all the bands I was with. We actually have a recording that we did for Polygram Records in the 80s, the band Young Thunder, and it was produced by Ozzy Osbourne's producer at that time, an engineer, Max Norman from England. And unfortunately, the record company shelved it because they just re-signed Deep Purple. And they said, we're going to put you guys on a shelf. We just invested millions of dollars and we got to, put all our resources towards their new album and tour. So that never got released. But it is on YouTube, the various recordings from that session. So, yeah.
Do you know the relationship between Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne? They knew each other, right? Starting out.
Oh yeah, they since they were in high school together, and they're friendly now. They've done various tours. They put out great music that's still sells today, and so they are basically iconic in the music industry as far as hard rock, heavy metal goes. They started it all, and and Tony with his fingers, if it wasn't for his fingers, he had an accident with his fingers his last 4 hours on a sheet metal job in Birmingham, England. And the way fate works is, he lost the fingertips and he created these fingertips by melting down a dishwashing detergent bottle and just filing it away until he could put these 2 plastic caps on his fingers. And then he had to figure out, how do I get this stuff to stop slipping all over the fretboard? And he was a genius. He came up with, hey, I'll just glue leather to it. And he had a fringed jacket. He cut that fringe off and he glued it. Just the way he thought of those things 6 months after his accident is amazing. And it also contributed to the Black Sabbath sound because he had to tune down. He had to contact guitar string manufacturers to make them extra light gauge strings, and no one wanted to do that. None of the companies wanted to make the light gauge strings for him, and now that's all they sell is light gauge strings.
Wow. Because
of his fingers, he had to use banjo strings, and then manufacture piccato strings in England, strings for him, and he actually, that company send me boxes when I moved back to New York of picado strings. That was so nice of him to do that. But that was back in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was getting strings sets, the ones that he used from picado strings.
I see, and those are special made. Well, let me do an introduction here to kick us off. Galaxy Guitars? Is that your
Galaxy
company?
Guitar Products USA.
Galaxy Guitar Products USA, and unfortunately, I found you. What happened is I'd gone to a guitar teacher who played blues electric, which I don't know how I ended up with him. And I wasn't using my middle finger. I was just playing without it. And he said, well, there's some guy, I think it's some rock band, and maybe he might have known Black Sabbath. I think he knew. He said you ought to look into that. You can get something to put on the end of your finger. I did, and that's when I Googled and found Galaxy. But that was in, I think, 98. And so
Wow.
I've been using the fingertip protectors since then. So I guess I played for like 25 years with not using that finger. I cut my finger off in high school at a factory. Factories seem to get you, right? And I clipped off the tip of it enough to get the bone. And I could play on it. I played on it for 10 years until I went to Nashville and started playing like every day for 8 or 10 hours. And then it started hurting so bad, and it didn't recover. So that's when I went left-handed for a couple of years, and then went back to right-handed because that wasn't working. And then I discovered you. So it's been great. So, and I'm really, your story is really inspiring in a couple of levels, Randy. One is your determination when you got an idea, your determination to solve the problem. That's really admirable, right? And then able to turn not only that, but also your guitars into a business, successful. And then your desire to help people. Your motive. One idea is if you can help people get what they want, then you get what you want. And you're helping more than I realized. Get into it, not just guitar players, but all kinds of people with really finger injuries to their hands, right? Fingers, really. So tell us how you got started.
Sure.
You were into Black Sabbath, right? So let's start there.
Well, it all started when I was a little kid, 3 years old. My older brothers, Guy and Steve, used to bring home these albums in the early 60s, and they eventually brought home Meet the Beatles, and that was the start of me just liking English guitar players. Of course, I liked George Harrison, and I studied him through elementary school, middle school, high school, played all the albums. I would play to George Harrison's All Things Must Pass album every single day after middle school and high school. It developed my solos and also my chord playing. And then I found Black Sabbath. My friend turned me on to them, and I said, geez, that guitar player sounds kind of like George Harrison, except he's heavier, and he's English too. And I was kind of struck by his percussive pick attack on the strings. You can hear like the clucking. He really has a hammer, really heavy right hand. Well, he's left-handed, so am I, but he plays lefty. I play righty. So anyway, then through high school, my mom pulled us out of 11th grade, and this is where it all started.
Okay.
We lived in Long Island, New York, in a beautiful neighborhood, grown up around horses and stuff, and with all my friends, great school, great social life. And my mom says, we're moving to Port St. Lucie, Florida. And I was just like totally not into it because, I was, had all my roots there in Long Island, New York. So anyway, if she didn't do that, none of this would have been possible with Galaxy Guitar Products. So here's how it started. When we moved to Port St. Lucie, Florida, a year later, Black Sabbath was playing the West Palm Beach Auditorium. And my girlfriend at that time, who was also from New York, she was a disco queen and I was the heavy metal guitarist. She says, we got to go down and meet your idol, Tony from Black Sabbath. No one's going to be down there at the West Palm Beach Auditorium. They all like Southern rock, so no one's going to be outside, during their sound check. Let's go down. So we did. And sure enough, after their sound check in the afternoon, who comes walking out? Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. That's where it started right there. And so the next year, Black Sabbath, after their tour, were recording an album called Technical Ecstasy in Miami, Florida. They flew over from England, and all of a sudden, Tony calls my mom or my house, and she goes, "Tony's on the phone." And I said, "Just hang up. That's my friend Neil, the drummer, just fooling around."
Your friend.
She said,
okay.
It sounds like Tony Iommi. Get on the phone. And I was going, "Just hang up the phone. He's pulling a prank." Anyway, it was Tony Iommi, and he says, "Hey, we're down in Miami for a month recording our new album. Why don't you stop by?" So we drove 50 miles, 2 hours south. And bottom line is, one night after their recording session, he decided to drive back to the hotel in our van. And my bass player, who's also from New York and moved down there, he had one of the old Dodge vans, and there was no passenger seat. We told Tony, "We'd love to drive you back, but there's no." He says, "Don't worry, I'll sit on the floor." Sure enough, he sat on the floor, and all we did from the studio, Criteria Studios in Miami, back to the Thunderbird Hotel right on the coast of Florida, we talked about Jimi Hendrix and his guitar playing. So that night, or it was about 1:00 in the morning then, up in his hotel room, I asked him, I said, "I saw you playing at the Nassau Coliseum in New York, and you were playing so fast, and it looks like you weren't even taking your fingers off the fretboard. You were just sliding like lightning speed." And I didn't know anything about his fingers. And reluctantly, he showed me, "Yeah, I cut my fingers off and I made these tips." And then he pulled out a little snap box and he showed me these tips. And I just became obsessed. Like, my jaw dropped. And bottom line is, after that, I was just driven to make a finger protector for myself. I don't have anything, thank God, I don't have any finger injuries, but I was totally driven. And I say obsessed because every day I would try to find something that would mimic what he showed me from my memory. And I would even write to Singer Sewing Machine. There was no internet back then. I'd have to wait 2 months for a reply asking them, do you make a fingertip that I could put some leather on? And they would say, 2 months later, the letter would come, "Hey, no, we just make the little red plastic thimble that you see in the little sewing kits." So I had to start making my own.
Was that because you wanted to get the sound?
Yeah, I wanted to play that technique, that low profile from watching him on stage, the way he looked. If you watch the California Jam on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about. That's like the time when I was really studying him, and I just liked that style. Plus, I liked the music, but I was amazed. And no one at the time even cared about anything like that. But me, I was totally obsessed. I used to walk into furniture stores with my girlfriend or whatever when I moved back to New York, and I would pull off rubber feet like on a metal stool. I'd go into a furniture store just to see if I can find a cap that I could make a fingertip, and I would pull off the rubber tip on the foot of the stool, put it on my finger, hold it up and go, "Nah, this will never work." And I did that for like 5 years. But in between, I was making my own tips, totally driven just to play that style, that fast hammer-ons and sliding from string to string. And so long story short, I did audition for Kiss and I auditioned for Ozzy Osbourne. And then the internet started. I moved from Long Island, New York to Las Vegas in around 1999. I still can't believe it's like 26 years, whatever. And the internet just started. And then I started getting emails from people I didn't know from like England saying, "Hey, I saw you on the new internet and you were playing with this fingertip. Can you make me one?" And I would email them back and say, "No, I just make it for myself." And then
and they were wanting to mimic the sound. Is that right?
Right. Some people from like Canada would say, "Hey, I play in a Black Sabbath tribute band and I saw you played with that tip like Tony. I need one of those. Can you make me one?" And I was totally against it. Like I didn't want to sell them. I said no politely. I would say, "No, I just make them for myself," And then a couple of months later, you were able to start sending pictures via the internet. Remember, the internet was brand new. You weren't able to send pictures right away. Then people started sending me pictures of their 2 fingers or 4 fingers chopped off, and they were basically begging, please, I haven't played my Les Paul in 2 years. I used to play in a classic rock band, or I used to play classical guitar, or I used to play in a jazz band. I can't even touch my strings. Can't you just make me one of those, please? And that's how it all started. And that was around the year 2000. And I would say, all right, I'll just make you one and I'll ship it out to England, just pay for the shipping. And that's how it all started.
Well,
now,
I got you told me about one of his songs, You Won't Change Me?
Yeah, I was in the studio with Tony when they were recording that album, and that was one of the songs before he laid down the solos. He came out into the lobby and I said, Tony, if you're doing the solo on this song, lay down those lightning fast hammer-ons that you do. And those 2 guitar solos, especially the second one, not only can you hear him playing super fast, but you can actually, if you know what you're listening to, you can hear the finger protector with him, sliding from the E to the B string. Maybe you can edit it in, but there's 2 solos in that song, and the first one is iconic, and the second one is just off the chain. That's the one. I tell everyone to listen to those 2 solos because you can hear the finger protectors at work. And I have them right here. I mean, and I'm sure you have a couple, but this is where it all started. And now we work 7 days a week, just keeping up with the demand. So the purpose is to tell people to please protect your fingers in the kitchen, or so many people lose them doing working on a table saw in the garage. I even have airline pilots on their day off in the garage, working in the wood shop and chopping off the 2 fingers on a router or a table saw. I have women who work in a delicatessen slicing it off with the deli slicer machine. So, or in the kitchen, or when they were a little girl, they slammed it in the door. And these people are very special because, like yourself, they refuse not to be able to play. There you go. They are so dedicated, and they have the will to overcome a finger challenge and to play a musical instrument. And so it's all about helping people. When we get orders, I don't just run the payment. That's the last thing. It could take 2 or 3 days to get to that stage. We want to make sure that they send in pictures over an inch tape measure. It's on the website. Yeah. And also a full request of, what type of accident did they have, and, what instrument, if any. There's a lot of people who don't even play a musical instrument, but they need something that's firm and that will last to type on a keyboard or something. So they'll order my products. And most of the orders are custom made. In fact, the custom made orders right now outsell everything. And of course, my guitars, just shipped 3 of them to Switzerland. And, I design my own guitars and look for manufacturers to make my design. And that takes 2 years in development to make sure the pickups and the electronics and the wood, and they sound good and they look great and they're different. So, it's like 2 businesses in one. But with finger protectors, it's all about helping those people. The money comes, that's secondary. You have to help these people. You have to help them, not only their physical, but sometimes they say, like, how did I do that? I'm a contractor. I've been working with the table saw for 40 years. And I was distracted for 1 second and I took off a fingertip, or I took off 2 fingertips. And those people want to be able to play their guitars, their bass guitar, their violins, their saxophones, play on keyboards. So my mission in life, I guess, is to help these people. And I'm always looking for an apprentice. So when I exit the planet, because I'm not going to live forever, somebody needs to carry, because these people need help. And I get orders almost every half hour, 7 days a week, from all over the world. And even prosthetic companies order from me to help their musician clients. And a lot of the clients demand my product because they know about it already. They've done their own research. But I've had many customers who said, yeah, my surgeon he waited until I was done with therapy, 7, 8 months. And then all of a sudden he took one of your finger protectors out of his top desk drawer and showed it to me and says, this is what we're going to order for you. So, all this from a guitar company, it's amazing. But it's not about me. It's about how the universe knew that this 17-year-old kid, his mom moved him out of Long Island down to Florida to meet his idol. He became obsessed with making these fingertips just for himself, and now they bless the world for people who are injured. And I'm the only company that makes what I make on the planet. We know that.
Yeah, that's a remarkable story. Yeah, and you started out, you're innovative too, though. You started out with a rack that would hold, 6 or 9 guitars?
Yeah, when I first started Galaxy Guitar Products in 1998 in Long Island, New York, me and my wife at that time, I invented what was called the Galaxy Guitar Rack System. I don't know if you can see, there's 2 of them behind me, but there they are.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, there they are. There's one on each side, and I was there.
Okay.
So I invented that, and a couple professional bands would order those, and that was the core business of Galaxy Guitar Products. I had to design it. I had to deal with the metal manufacturers. I would deal with a company that made just the flight case, and then I would have to deal with the company that made the metal bar and powder coated it. And then they would help me get the foam. They would know of a company that made the foam for it. So that was all done in 1998. And then a couple of companies started copying it, and they were, instead of using my metal flight cases, they were starting to make it out of wood. And to put Tolex covering over it. So, I had a lot of competition. And then the finger protectors just started taking off. And since that time, I only sold the fingertip. So people would say, like, well, I cut off more than their finger. I cut off more than the tip. Can't you make it longer? And I would say, no, I just make the tip. And a lot of people don't even know they're dealing directly with me because I like to stay in the background.
Yeah, but, that's what you say, right.
I'm the one who oversees every single order that goes out, everyone. And, spend time painting them. I'm into commercial airliners, so I try to make my finishes look like a Boeing 777 or something like that. And I'm always coming out with different products. Like this year or last year in 2023, I came out with the FT1 Ultra. I think you have one. And that's where they said, I don't need a longer one. I just need it just a little bit more than the tip.
So it stays on the finger better.
Yeah. And they've cut off more than the tip of their finger. So that's why I came out with the Ultra. And
this is the Ultra. Well, the difference for me is the original one, and this is the third. The first one was hard plastic, and then you made a softer plastic, and then that was this one. Yeah,
when I first started making them for about 10 years, they were the hard plastic core, and they couldn't be heated up. Or then I invented the product called Ultra Flex, which is firm yet a little bit flex to it. And if you heat it up, which I know you know about it now, and you can press a plastic cap into it, and it can expand the core. So if you get a 5/8 and you say it's a little snug, I need it just a little bit, there you go.
So it fits on a little tighter. It fits longer, so it's tighter, so it doesn't.
Yeah, and what I try to make them where the only way you can destroy them is if your cat or dog eats it, because it smells like the owner, or you step on it, or you lose it outside. Of course, the leather and the finish will wear off, but I try to make the cores that will last a lifetime. Unlike medical prosthetics that are too soft, they're made out of silicone, and as I understand it, they dry out in about 2 years. And even prosthetic companies contact me and say, hey, if you'd sell us a license agreement, we could sell these things for $8,500 each, and the insurance provider will pay for it. And I just turn that down. That's why I don't sell them on Amazon. I mean, I could be a millionaire selling them on Amazon. Nope, ain't going to happen, because everybody has a different finger entry. And up front, remember I said about 2-3 days before we process the payment, we have to work with them, and find out what they need, because a lot of people will look to our company for the length, like which one do you think I need? And we don't choose they're the final decision makers, but I do provide professional tech support to help everybody. So they're ordering the right. I even came up with a couple of techniques so they can choose their diameter. If they have a socket tool set at home, they can
a socket just to measure the diameter. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, and
but
then I had to
be American system, right? Or
yeah. I don't use millimeters or centimeters. I'm old fashioned. I use inches. That's it. Inches, 5/8, 11/16, 9/13. I think I've done 7/8, and we just did one for a thumb of 1 inch diameter. So then, I do a lot of women also, and some of them are elderly, and grandma's not going to have a socket tool set at home. So I had to come up with something like, how can I get grandma to measure? So I came up with this. Do you have a zip tie in your kitchen drawer? I know you do. Yeah. Well, put that zip tie, tighten it up, keep it on the finger for 10 minutes to see if it feels comfortable, see what size. And then when you find the size that feels comfortable after you've wrapped it around and tightened it down, lay that against the left inch mark on a tape measure. And that will tell you the diameter that you should order. And it works like a charm. Even grandma can figure it out, So after the socket tool test that I've been using for about 4 years now, I had to come up with something else because a lot of people, mostly men had them, but women don't, or their son does. And then also you can use one of those metal bands that you tie a radiator hose or something, like a metal ring clamp, it's called.
A ring clamp,
with the little screw on the side. You can slip one of those over your finger and keep it on there for 10 minutes so it feels comfortable, and determine what size you need, and lay that steel ring clamp over a tape measure, line it up against the left inch mark. That's going to tell you your diameter. And people do that all over the world every single day.
Do all of them have the same leather tip, or do you make that different for different people?
Oh, great question. Bass players, I make it wider and strong, even stronger. Guitar players, it's pretty standard size, what you have. And now I came out with what's called the ultra thin, which refers to just the exterior grip. Some people play mandolin or violin or 12-string or even Stratocasters, and some of the nuts, the strings are closer together.
Yeah.
So as a free option on custom orders, they can order what's called the ultra thin option.
Well, these are, this one's wider than this one.
Yeah. So
is there a thinner one?
We make it, well, the ultra thin, it looks like you have an ultra thin, but we also have to be careful, because if we make it too thin, it's not going to stand up to the guitar strings. So, but we make it thinner than what you have there.
Oh, we make it even thinner than this? Like a mandolin player?
Yeah, we even make it thinner than that, because a lot of people will reorder and say, I want it even thinner. So they get that option at no additional charge. Just like bass players, if they place an order and they say, I play bass, we don't charge extra because there's more material that we have to use. Again, it's all about helping the people out,
Well, if I wanted to make this one into a thin one, could I cut it with a razor blade on each side and peel it off?
I don't recommend you. Don't alter it. Don't cut it, because that will compromise the bonding underneath it.
Yeah, that's what I was. And
on your next one, just on your next order, we'll make it. If you want it thinner, just say I want it ultra thin. Real thin. We'll make it skinnier for you.
Well, I would just get one. I would just get one of these, which I'm going to get another one at least. Just that standard one did work. This one.
Yeah, you've had a lot of standard ones, even the plastic ones that you said that. I remember like a couple of years ago, you said that you preferred the plastic cap, but that's changed now. You got used to the Ultra Flex core.
Yeah. No, I used the Flex ones was better. And now you got the little bit longer just so it stays on there better. So it's.
Yeah, and again, we used to do refurbishments, but we had to stop that.
Yeah, you had to quit that. That was better. I sent in a couple and got them redone.
That was to save people from the investment of buying a brand new one, they would send it in. We'd sanitize it, but we can't do that anymore because of COVID. Ever since COVID, things have changed. So got to protect everyone from infection.
So have you got a technician there who works for you or with you? Or?
Yeah. But I oversee everything.
But you're still looking for
looking for an apprentice who plays guitar. Got to have the right mindset. And to make these is a challenge because it fights us every step of the way. Like trying to get leather to bond to a core, that is a challenge right there. And that's a whole day process. Then you have to do the painting, which is 2 to 3 days. And then if you get to the last stage of painting and there's a little speck in it, like you got to do it over again. So it fights us every inch of the way. But bottom line is churning them out every single day, and they're shipping all over the world and via FedEx. And FedEx has done amazing stuff. We're just starting to use DHL now for just international, but we consider FedEx a partner because they've done amazing stuff, getting like a finger protector from here to Memphis, across the Atlantic Ocean, through customs, all that in 18 hours to the client in 18 hours. It's amazing. So they know what we do and they know what they're handling, and they really take care of our clients.
Oh, okay.
So
now, do you still have a friendship with Tony Iommi, or?
No, I haven't spoke to him, but actually on Facebook, it's funny. Yesterday, I don't know if it really was him, but it came from his Facebook page, and he said, "Please contact me." So, and it was from his page. So it's funny, but we used to be in touch, and he used to do some amazing stuff. Like, remember I said he would arrange to have the manager of Picado Strings, who's now, I believe, out of business in England, but he arranged for them to send me boxes of the guitar sets that he played. Also, there's pictures on the internet. If someone types in Randy Young and Tony Iommi and goes to images, there's some images of me and Tony at the Waldorf Astoria. I have plenty of pictures of us in the studio. But he was a big influence on me, and he was so nice. Like when I was a teenager, I mean, he was so nice to me. So he's a big part of blessing the people who are injured. I used to have his pictures all over on the website, giving him full credit for it. But other than that, I haven't talked to him in quite some time.
So the main people in this story are your mother. And I guess, were you like a junior in high school or senior when you moved to Florida?
Yeah, and I ran away my first day when we got to Port St. Lucie. It was a stormy night and all that. We were staying at, I think it was the Hilton Resort down there in Port St. Lucie at that time. There was only brand new houses being built, a 7-Eleven, and a resort. And we stayed at the resort until our house was finished, and I ran away, and the sheriff had to come find me on some road, and there was lightning bolts going all over, armadillos, pitch black. But I was so mad that we moved down there. But as fate would have it, it was leading me to being able to meet Tony, learn about the finger protectors that he showed me that one late night when we drove him back from
I see that.
He could have said, like, "Oh, you don't have a passenger seat in the van? All right, we'll take the limo again." But he didn't. And when we drove him back, he invited us up. Ozzy was in the hotel room. They were all hanging out, and then that was a fateful day. But when he showed me the tip, I just became, my jaw went, whoa. And I tried from memory. Like, he just showed it to me for 30 seconds. And from that 30 seconds, I had to memorize how it looked and how the leather looked and all that. And mine are more perfected, much more now. But the story that you can read about at galaxyguitar.com, the About Us, that's the amazing part, because I was I use the word obsessed because I had to make a fingertip for myself. And I was doing it for 10, 15 years before Galaxy. I was playing with it. I played with bands Squadron, Young Thunder, Shockwave, and I always played I actually had a guitar tech, and his core job after he set up all my effects and my stage equipment, he would sit with my finger protectors, and I still have the blue box here. He would sit with it on top of a flight case and just guard it while we were performing.
Did
that was
you use
the band's
two of them or one?
I used one just for my ring finger. Yeah, just
for your ring finger to try to get the sound.
Try to get. And I still play with them. They're all over the house and stuff, but basically this is what they look like.
Okay.
And then, like I try to come up with different things. You got some guys, hey, I fell off my motorcycle, my Harley, and I lost 2 fingertips. So that inspired me to make these with the stripes, and, they come in different colors. Okay. And I give them names like this one's called Stealth Force, because it's dark. And then I put the stripes on it. Now I put flames on it. I try to come up with things that guys would like to make it more aggressive. And a lot of women like it too. So, I'm always trying to come up with different things so they can feel like it's an individual thing for them, And to me, these are a work of art. So
that is, yeah.
It takes 4 days to make each one. And I make the standard sizes in batches. So I'll do 10 or 20 at a time. And believe me, it's like fighting them all the time. But when they come out like this, you go like, wow, look at it. Look at the gloss. It looks really nice. And if that can help somebody, the great thing about these is there's no pain. When you put them on, they create a pressure barrier between the steel guitar string and your fingertip. And a lot of people who cut their fingertips off, they experience severe pain, and I call it a zinger. So does my staff. We call it a zinger, like that nerve, So these prevent the zinger because you're not going to feel the guitar strings, but you're not going to have the pain of that string pressing. And bass players, they have those big steel strings, So, and also, a lot of people order it for their plucking hand because accidents don't discriminate what finger.
I never thought.
And there's even a picture on the website of, we have hundreds of customers, but that use it on their plucking hand because they've lost a fingertip here. And I make them for the strumming hand, or we have a banjo player, you name it. I've been at it for 28 years, so got a lot of people that were helping. And that's why it's important to have somebody who can take the business and carry on, because God forbid, I'm not going to be here forever. I hope I will be, but chances, statistics say I'm not going to be here forever. And people need to know how to make these, and so they can help people. With guitars.
Another big part of the story is that woman who was your girlfriend at the time took you to see Tony when he came out the back door.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I want to give her credit. Her name was Diane Gilberti, and we met in Florida, and I was totally miserable when I moved down there. In fact, she was at the 7-Eleven one night, and I met a drummer there, and he would go to 7-Eleven every night and hang out. And I was sitting in his car because I just moved down there, and there was nothing there. And she came over to the window and said, "Are you going to just sit in the car all night?" And I rolled up the window on her, and she loved it. She loved it. She was gorgeous, so she's used to guys hitting on her. She would come over to the window, she was disco, all glittered out and stuff, very pretty, lipstick, everything, really nice. And she goes, "Are you going to sit in the car all night?" And I just rolled the window up. I was so, miserable. And then the next day, people were calling me or coming. They say, "That girl, Diane Gilberti, everyone loves that girl. And she loved that you rolled up the window on her." And I said, "Yeah, she was antagonizing me." But anyway, she was the one, we started dating for 4 years and all that. So
4 years,
amazing. That's
quite a while. Okay.
Yeah. And she took all the pictures that are up in that of me and Tony, Ozzy. She was the one taking pictures on an Instamatic. She was smart
camera, right?
But she said when Black Sabbath was playing West Palm Beach Auditorium, she was saying, "You got to go down there and meet Tony." She was right. She's going, "No one's going to be down there. They all like Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet, Southern rock. They're not going to be waiting for Tony in the back, we should drive down there. And we did. A couple of friends and her and myself, we drove down there. We got there around 12 o'clock, and around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, who comes strolling out of the back door with his guitar case, his SG case, Tony Iommi. And that's where it all started. That's where it all started. And there's pictures of me and Tony on the beach. I was showing him pictures of pictures that we took 3 years prior when they played the Nassau Coliseum. And that story was amazing because it was a blizzard up in New York on Long Island, and Leonard Skinner was opening up the show, and people were setting chairs on fire because they wanted to hear Black Sabbath. And because of the snow, there was a big delay. So they didn't come on until 11:30 at night. And all of a sudden, when they hit the stage, I never saw them before. I never even saw pictures of them. And it was amazing because when they came out on stage, Tony Iommi had short hair, no mustache. And I go to my friend, that's the guy who wrote all those doomy riffs? Is that the guy, Tony Iommi? And they go, yeah, that's him. I go, yeah, it doesn't even look like, he looked like he should be working in a nice Italian restaurant or something. Short hair, no mustache, just churning out the heavy power chords on a Gibson SG, a red SG. And that, to me, was a moment that always stuck with me, because it's not only him and the band was amazing, but the blizzard outside, we didn't even think we'd be able to leave the Coliseum. It was 5 feet of snow when we went in. And they weren't on stage yet, and people were getting mad. They were setting chairs on fire. So the whole epic, it all created an obsession to make the finger protectors 5 years later. That's it all started. And then 40 years after that, we could hardly keep up with the demand. So protect your fingers. You wouldn't believe. I'm like a doctor. Some of the things that I have to review pictures every single day. The staff will bring it to me. I have to look at all their pictures over an inch tape measure. Most of them are injuries that happened years ago, but some of them are injuries that happened 4 months ago, and they're pretty gruesome. And you have to help those people. And you have to tell them that we'll get you through it. Give yourself 6 months to heal. Let the swelling go down. We'll guarantee you we'll get you back to playing your instrument, no matter what kind. It could be a keyboard. It could be a saxophone. I did a little girl that was in Alaska. Her therapist contacted us and said that she was 9 years old and she lost her finger, and she was devastated. Her parents had to send her to a therapist because she lost all her self-esteem. She used to play flute in a school band up in Alaska, and she could no longer do that because of her finger missing. So we made her a longer FT1 XL, and now she's back. This was a couple of years ago, and then she's back in the band playing her flute. No more therapists, And so those are the kind of things that Galaxy Guitar Products does on a daily basis. It's just amazing. And I always say this, all this from a guitar company. Pretty amazing.
It is amazing, right? It's really, really gratifying to hear. Those pictures can be traumatizing. Did they ever get to you? You're good with that. When you see gruesome pictures over and over,
they do. When I see pictures that are a severe injury, it even makes me want to help them more. And they know by the emails that we send to them right away, like first they have to tell us so we have a good picture of what happened, and are they experiencing pain. Like people who just send a picture with nothing else, I have to email them back and say, like, you have to submit a formal request. Are you experiencing pain? Do you play a musical instrument? If so, what kind? And then after they order and we go through the whole process, they have to fill out an authorization just so they know all sales are final. We can't handle finger protectors once they've been on someone's finger. We don't know if it's a wound or whatever. And they all fill that out. And we ask them, what kind of music do you on that authorization? They have to fill out their name, their just to confirm their size. And the reason why I do that is so many people will change the size that they originally placed the order for. And they're going, geez, thanks for the authorization. I never would have remeasured my finger. I don't need the 3/4 inch. I need the 5/8 or 11/16.
I see.
We deal with that every day. That's just one last step to make sure they're ordering the right size for them. But we do ask them, what kind of instrument do you play? What kind of music do you play? Because we want to know, we want to have a full picture, because everyone's different. That's why I don't sell them on Amazon, and that's why they're not in guitar stores, my choice, because everyone has a different injury, everyone has a different scenario, and they get personalized attention. Now, if it's a guitar, that's a different sale. The guitar, we wax the guitars, we put new strings on it, even though they're brand new. And when they open up their guitar case, it like glows. That's the wow factor that we talk about. But for finger prosthetics and finger tips, it's not about the sale. It's about making sure we get it right with you. They're the final decision maker. We do not make their decisions of size or the type of device that they use. That's their job. But we do everything we can to help them with detailed reports. Once they send us those pictures and they tell us they play an instrument, they tell us what kind of instrument. Like if they didn't tell us they play bass, we wouldn't know to send them one with an extra wide, exterior grid. So
right.
Those are kinds of things we get out of it. And 99.9% of our customers are amazing because they go through all those hoops, because they very quickly realize, geez, it's not like ordering from Amazon where I give them my credit card and they just bang it out, but we do ship the same day a lot of times. Almost 90% of the time it's shipped, but on custom orders, it takes 3 or 4 times. But they learn very quickly that, man, these guys really care. And there's testimonials on our website. We can't fit them all on there, but we have, I think there's like 10 of them up there, but we get hundreds of thank yous. And I always encourage people to read those testimonials. Plus, there's a lot of blogs. We always ask, how did you find us? And a lot of people say, I read blogs. And then some people mention your website, and I went to your website. So obviously there's lots of blogs out there that mention Galaxy guitar products. And it's all because this 17-year-old kid from Port St. Lucie, Florida, met Tony Iommi and became obsessed with just making his own. I never wanted to sell them. I was always against it. And part of the reason why I was against it was, if anyone's going to play like Tony Iommi, it's going to be only me. And that was one of the reasons when I was younger that I didn't want anyone to have it, including the guys in the tribute bands, But if you listen to bands, my band Squadron, you can go on YouTube or go to Facebook and just type in on the search bar, Young Thunder Rocks, and you'll see the page with Shockwave, Squadron, all that. You can hear my style is like Tony's. And bottom line is, it's just an amazing story. And again, it's not about me. It's the universe knew it had a plan for this kid who was going to be obsessed to help millions of people who are devastated with this severe finger injury.
Well, in talking with you, one thing for me, it made me feel like I wasn't the Lone Ranger. I wasn't the only person that had done that to his hand.
Oh, yeah.
He wears one of those. It's like it helped normalize that. Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
That's a great point that you bring up, because one of the things that we say in the email, every email is, and we mean it, we see your type of finger condition daily, very, common for us. This is what we put in the email. But your finger looks much better than most we help. Now, if that's true, we put that in there too. Because a lot of people have, like, we just got an order this morning. His finger is cut off and he's got everything looks perfect. It's just he's missing the nail forward. And, most people, their fingers have already healed and all that. But they still, that sensitivity never goes away. And a lot of times in the cold weather, it gets more sensitive. So people who live in cold sections of the world, when they try to play that guitar, they get the zinger and they can't do it. But when they put a Galaxy FT1 or FT1 XL or FT1 Ultra, and I make the longer one with the fingernail too. It's called the FT2. That's a 2-inch. And I also do the fingernail on that too. And that's for people who really cut it off up to like the second knuckle. We actually have a guy in Canada that cut all 4 fingers off, and he ordered 4 of those. And we said, "You sure? Why don't you just order 1 first? Get your brain used to it." And he said, No. He goes, "I'm relentless. I'm going to make it work." So we did 4 of them. He lives on St. Charles Island or something out there in Nova Scotia by there. And I think he did a testimony for us. It's on the website too, The testimonials are not about to make a sale. It's to, like, people who read those testimonials. A lot of the people will find themselves in one of those testimonials, like the violin players. We have people from financial services who said, "If I would have known about this years ago, I wouldn't have had to go for depression, this and that." So, and it's pretty extraordinary. We're the only guitar company in the world that does it. When you have sales in Siberia, you know that you're the only person on the planet making it.
You're the only one doing it.
Yeah, we've done it.
Another thing on my experience is I can actually feel, I don't know that I feel the string, but if I put my finger on the string, there's no pad, so it's painful. But if I hit that finger protector on the string, I know where the end of my finger is, and I can tell the string is there. So you do still have, it's not like it's numb.
Right, your brain, and that's very interesting, and because your experience with using them. So this podcast, people can get the best of both worlds. It's not just somebody talking about it. It's somebody who is actually a user. Your brain, we always say on the emails, your only challenge is your determination and patience to give yourself time to let the finger protector do its job, and your brain will get used to it. Is that true?
Yes. It knows where to put the end of that finger. It kind of it goes there and no, but it's taken a while. I mean, but that's been years ago too, really. And it took about 2 weeks to get used to it. But
we do a lot of military people too, So we even asked them in the authorization, "Are you a veteran?" Because we do a couple of special things for veterans. But other than that, it's really just about helping people. We have so many orders. It's not about a sale. Believe me, it's about getting it right so they can play their guitar. And almost 90% of all our customers reorder. Some of them burn through. I don't know how they do it, because I have my originals that are 9 years old and I'm still on my original leather, and I play very aggressive. But some people burn through it in a month, it's amazing.
Wow.
And they'll just keep ordering.
The older ones came apart quicker. I got another question for you, and this might. So you auditioned with Ozzy Osbourne, is that right?
Yeah, it was kind of touchy.
What was that like? How does that go?
Well, I auditioned for Kiss and Ozzy, so.
They're different? I didn't know. Kiss is different than Ozzy?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Remember, I was in the studio with Black Sabbath, and I was just this punk kid hanging out with Tony Iommi on the beach in Florida and in the studio. And all of a sudden, then I moved back to New York, and then Black Sabbath was playing at Madison Square Garden, and they were doing their album at that time was after the one I was in the studio. It was called Never Say Die. So it was that tour. And then all of a sudden after that tour, I heard they threw Ozzy out of Black Sabbath, And then a month after that, I get a call from Ozzy, and he had my phone number. I guess he got it somehow when we were in the studio. But anyway, he says, he said these words: "I got $3 million behind me. We're going to be the new Led Zeppelin." Those were his words. And so anyway, he flew to New York. His wife, Sharon, arranged everything. They were in LA at that time. He flew to New York, and we auditioned. I had my band Squadron, which you can see. We were just like Black Sabbath. We sounded like them, we looked like them, but we did all our original material. And Ozzy said, "Why don't you fly to LA?" I said, "Well, I have the whole band here. Why don't you fly to New York?" And that I wasn't thinking. That was a big mistake. It was a big mistake. Here's why. Oh. So Ozzy shows up. He was wearing a Boston Bruins jersey. He shows up with his assistant. We were playing in a studio called Top Cat Studios in Manhattan. We had everything arranged, the lights, the stage show, everything. And there we were playing. and we did a couple of Black Sabbath covers. So after that, Ozzy said, like, you guys are great, blow my mind, great. And then all of a sudden, he was flying back to LA. He did some radio interviews, and I didn't hear from him for about 2 weeks. And I called, and that office in LA said, oh, his father is ill. He flew back to England. So I said, oh, okay. So his father had cancer. So anyway, he flew back to England. And then about 2 months, I don't hear anything, and I'm not going to press it because, his father was ill and he went back there. All of a sudden, 2 months later, I called the office, and Ozzy calls me back, and he goes, now remember, Black Sabbath threw him out of the band, right? And when he flew to see the audition, we were like Black Sabbath. That was like the worst thing he could want to see, And so I talked to him, and he goes, Randy, you're like Tony's effing clone, man. He goes, I can't deal with it. You look just like him. Like if you see the pictures in Squadron, you're like his clone. And I said, oh, man. He goes, you guys look just like Black Sabbath up there. You're freaking me out, So I said, damn, I should have just went to L.A. and,
right.
and not shown him the band. Like even the drummer had the same white double bass drum set, everything that Black Sabbath had, And that was immature because I wasn't thinking, why would he want to see something that just threw him out? His friends, Black Sabbath, they tossed him out because he had, other problems and challenges. And here I am thinking like, oh, we were doing Paranoid. We did War Pigs, all their songs, and we did it just like they do it. And there I am with the finger protector playing a red SG, just like Tony Iommi, who just threw him out of Black Sabbath. I wasn't thinking. So that didn't happen. So that I go, oh man. So then we wound up doing doing a recording for Polygram Records, and that band now was Young Thunder. And then all of a sudden I get a call from my manager at the time. He says, how would you like to audition for Kiss? And I said, okay, do I have to wear the makeup and all that? And he goes, I don't think so. I think they're stopping the makeup. I go, oh, okay. So he says, call this number. And it was Gene Simmons, his hotel room in LA, and I'm back in New York, right? So I call him, and he asked me a couple of questions, and I flew out. And so there I am. I never was into Kiss. I never learned any of their music. And Gene Simmons said, learn the double live album. So there I am. I just fly to LA. I'm in a hotel room. It's 4:00 in the morning. And I got a cassette of the double live album, and I'm sitting there in the hotel room learning all the riffs and stuff. 2 days later, I'm at SIR Studios on stage playing with them. And I can't really get into it, but one of the members in Kiss was really jealous of my guitar that has my name in it. I just got this Charvel guitar over there, and my dad ordered it for me. It took 23 weeks for them to make it. And I just got it a week before I was auditioning, and I took it with me. And of course, one of the people in the band was jealous because I would ask the drummer, like, what's going on? Like, why has he got that? He goes, dude, he is so jealous of that guitar with your name in it. So that's why I'm not with Kiss. So, but there were some interesting stories of that whole episode as well. Some funny things. So yeah, that was another disappointment, so I had two major disappointments, and I'm a nice guy and a great guitar player, but those factors were just, for some reason against me. And that's why I'm not with Kiss. So I'm kind of glad that didn't work out. But yeah, it's been quite an experience.
So you can look at how things come together, but also how things don't come together that cause the other part to come together.
Exactly. If I was touring, there'd be no finger protectors. It would just be me playing with one on stage. I would always play with a finger protector on all the time. Even when I rehearse at home, I always play with it. I take it off and stuff. Like there's videos of me on YouTube too, playing with it and not playing with it. But it's something that, because I always have to make sure I'm where the customer is, like if I'm playing with it, I know that's why an apprentice has to play guitar. Like I can't just have someone run the business, like when I'm gone. They have to play guitar. They have to know, the relationship of the musicians. But almost 50% of the people who order, they play different instruments. They play piano, they play saxophone, violin. We do them all. And they all have finger injuries. And it's amazing how, like today, we have customers, and we've been doing this for decades now. And it just shows you how many people lose their fingers. And it's usually a table saw. Is that how you do?
No, I was in a factory and I pushed the buggies into a freezer, carts into a freezer, and they were made out of angle iron. And two buggies clipped together like that, and my finger was on the outside of one. And it was just that end sticking out, just the end of the tip. And it clipped between two metal bars, and it chopped the end off, sliced it off.
And so many people ask me, like, how are you so passionate about making them and your fingers are fine? I said, I know, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
It's an obsession,
It's an obsession. Well, a good obsession. Definitely you're focused on something and you're there with it.
I still have the originals that I made. They look like prehistoric. I still have them. And they don't look like this. They look, I go, how did you ever play with those? And those were the ones that people were saying, hey, can you make me one? Back in the 70s, well, the 80s, actually. I still have all of them. They're in a pouch. I saved them. And when I look back at them, I go, dude, you really progressed a lot, So I saved the old ones. I could have tossed them, but I said, no, I'm saving them. So those are the originals. And I have the original purse that I kept them in, and then they went into a blue snap box. So, and every day, that's my life, is making finger prosthetics every day. Work 7 days a week. Sometimes I'm up until 1 o'clock in the morning, 12:30. And we prepare the custom documents for when we ship overseas and all that. And then for guitar orders, that's a hard order too, because there's a lot of things. The guitar has to be stripped down, the electronics, everything's tested. Even though it's brand new, got to test everything. Because if there's anything ever wrong, you want to find it before the customer gets it, And our guitars are not cheap, so I want to make sure that when people honor us with their business, we do the best we can. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be.
Do you build the guitars there, or they're built somewhere else and they come to you?
No, I designed them, and they're built in Oregon. Everything's USA, but they use international parts. So we get the wood from Oregon, but it's a lot of back and forth. Like right now, the F-24, if you go on the galaxyguitar.com website, the F-24, I created that around 12 years ago, and now I'm phasing it out. Even though it's selling, I want to phase it out because the people who have it, now it's going to be a collector's item, and the value will increase dramatically. And there's only a couple left. So now I've already designed the new one. I would love to give you the name because the whole concept of it is pretty amazing. I could just say that it's military based, but I can't say anything else about it. It's already spec'd out and everything. Just dealing with custom shop right now to find the perfect custom shop to manufacture, because that will carry on for 12 years. And then I'll stop that. And because after, these guitars have a run, it's good to just not make the model anymore. This way, the people who invested in them and play them know now that they have a collector's item. And we will send all those customers an email to let them know when that line is completely sold out and they're not manufactured anymore. And we will let them know it's a collector's item. And we know it because guitars I designed 2 decades ago, people are calling us. One's called a New York Pro, which was made in the U.S. Now there's companies that used to make them in Japan, but ours were made in the United States. And people call us, hey, do you know where I could get a New York Pro, a USA model, like a Strat and all that? And we just said we don't make them anymore. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But when you're dealing with finger prosthetics, that's a whole different dimension.
It's the other side of your business. But you told me your dad's was a businessman, right? So you must have you were kind of born into that, I think.
Yeah, my father owned movie theaters, and his side of the family was in the film business, making films for United Artists. And my father owned movie theaters. And my father was my biggest fan. He used to drive to the gigs, take a limo. It was like a whole event. In fact, when Tony Iommi got me backstage at Madison Square Garden, I gave my tickets to my dad, and he brought a friend of his, and he said he had a blast sitting there watching Black Sabbath, and all the kids were saying, like, he said they were passing around, weed and stuff. And they were asking my dad, what do you guys got? My father had a flask of martinis that he, so he was drinking martinis, and the kids were saying, hey, we want some of that. So it was blessed. But my dad he's in heaven now, but he was my biggest fan. And he didn't play a musical instrument. Now, my mom she was very talented Italian. And she played one of those big white wraparound organs, and she played every single day in our house. Every day she would play all the modern music, all Jimmy Roselli, all kinds of the contemporary music of the 60s and 70s. And she played the bass, with her foot and all that. And so she was a musician. But George Harrison's the one that got me playing guitar, but my mom's the one that got me my first guitar lessons. And I basically taught myself, but I did take lessons for like 4 or 5 lessons. And then I took music theory in high school, and I never was good at that because I just couldn't comprehend it. And but if Mom didn't move me out of Long Island, New York, down to Florida, I wouldn't have all the blessings I have right now. So it's just amazing, the whole story. And I remember walking into the furniture stores, pulling caps off furniture, putting it on my finger, going, nah, this will never work.
So you met Tony Iommi the first time. Was that the only time during that time they were in Florida that you talked to him? Or
no,
did you meet
I met him backstage, when he came outside.
Yeah.
And the next day, I met him. The next year, that's when I was in Miami.
But that's when he contacted you.
I think my computer's going to die here, so if I cut you off.
Well, I'll let you go. But,
yeah, no, I'm getting an icon right now. So, yeah, okay. So I met him around 1976, and then I think around 1977, they were in Miami. And then bottom line,
he contacted you then, but then when he went to Madison Square Garden,
and that was the third time. That was the third time, and a fourth time after that.
Yeah,
they played Madison Square Garden twice, like one year, and then they played there the next year. And he would always get me backstage then. And then, then I started being more involved with my own bands and stuff, and we lost touch there. But he did write me a couple letters and stuff like that, which was amazing, So I wish I had one letter that he wrote, but it was I sent him one of my guitar demos on cassette to England, and he wrote back. And he says it sounds really good, and that's the one that Ozzy heard. And then Ozzy said, I want to audition. I got $3 million behind me. It wasn't the experience. It was the same recording, but obviously it wasn't the same cassette, but yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thank you,
Jordan. I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, good. Hopefully, well, I enjoyed talking to you.
Viewers get a kick out of it.
Yeah. Keep in touch. All right.
Okay. You take care.
All right. See ya.